Have you ever wanted to ask for help at work in English, but your mind suddenly went blank?
Maybe you worried about sounding unprofessional, bothering someone, or using the wrong words.
That's a very common problem for English learners, especially in professional situations where confidence really matters. I'm Anna.
And I'm Leo. And the truth is, asking for help is something people do every single day at work. Even native English speakers ask questions, request clarification, and depend on coworkers all the time. So today, we're going to practice how to do that naturally and confidently in English.
All right, let's begin today's conversation. Hey, Leo, do you have a minute?
Sure, Anna. What's going on?
I'm working on the client report for tomorrow's meeting, and I've run into a small problem with the sales spreadsheet.
I see. What kind of problem?
I'm trying to update the monthly numbers, but some of the formulas don't seem to be working correctly. I changed a few values earlier, and now the totals look completely wrong.
Got it. Spreadsheets can get messy pretty quickly. Did the formula stop working after you edited the file?
I think so. Everything looked normal before I updated the April numbers. After that, several sections changed automatically, and now the final totals are much higher than they should be.
All right, let me take a look. Okay, I think I see the issue. One of these cells is referencing the wrong column, so the spreadsheet is adding extra values by mistake.
Oh, that makes sense. I had a feeling I accidentally changed something important.
Don't worry, that happens all the time.
Really? I always feel embarrassed when I ask for help with technical things.
Honestly, you shouldn't. At work, asking for help is usually better than pretending everything is fine. Most managers would rather see someone ask questions early instead of making a bigger mistake later.
That's actually reassuring to hear.
And by the way, reassuring is a very useful word in professional English. If something is reassuring, it makes you feel calmer or more confident.
Reassuring. Got it. That's a good word.
Exactly. So in this case, knowing that other people also ask for help can feel reassuring.
Understood. Can I ask you something else?
Of course.
I'm not sure how to ask for help politely in English. I worry that I sound too direct.
That's a common concern. A very natural phrase is, "Could you help me with this when you have a moment?" It sounds polite, professional, and respectful of the other person's time.
Could you say that one more time, a little more slowly?
Absolutely. Could you help me with this when you have a moment?
That sounds much more natural than what I usually say.
You're doing great. Another good phrase is, "I was hoping you could clarify something for me."
Clarify. That means explain more clearly, right?
Exactly. At work, people use that word constantly in meetings and emails.
That's really helpful. I hear that word often, but I wasn't completely sure how to use it naturally.
Now you can start using it yourself.
Thanks, Leo. I appreciate it.
No problem at all. So besides the spreadsheet issue, how's everything else going today?
Pretty busy, honestly. I'm also preparing slides for tomorrow's presentation, and I still need to answer several emails before the end of the day.
Sounds like a full schedule.
Definitely. I'm trying to stay organized, but sometimes I feel overwhelmed when too many tasks arrive at once.
I understand that completely. Work can get stressful, especially when deadlines are close.
Exactly. And sometimes I hesitate to ask questions because everyone else looks so confident and busy.
That's interesting because most people probably feel the same way privately. A lot of employees act confident even when they're unsure about something.
That actually makes me feel better.
Good. And remember, asking questions can show responsibility, not weakness.
That's a nice way to think about it.
For example, imagine your manager gives you instructions, but one part isn't clear. Instead of guessing, you could say, "Just to make sure I understood correctly, would you like me to finish this by Friday?"
Oh, I like that phrase.
It's very professional because you're confirming information clearly.
Can we practice that together?
Absolutely.
Okay. Just to make sure I understood correctly, would you like me to finish this by Friday?
Perfect. That sounded very natural.
Thanks. I think practicing out loud really helps.
It definitely does. Speaking English is a skill, and skills improve with repetition.
You know, one situation that makes me nervous is asking coworkers for help when they look busy.
That's understandable.
Sometimes I stand there thinking, maybe I should wait, and then I waste 20 minutes trying to solve the problem alone.
I've done that before too.
Really?
Absolutely. Especially at the beginning of my career. I didn't want people to think I was inexperienced.
That's exactly how I feel sometimes.
But eventually, I realized something important. Experienced employees ask questions too. The difference is that they usually ask clear and specific questions.
That makes sense.
For example, instead of saying, I don't understand this, you could say, I'm having trouble understanding this section of the report. Could you walk me through it?
Oh, that sounds much more professional.
Right. Specific questions help people help you faster.
I never thought about it that way before.
Communication becomes easier when the other person understands exactly what you need.
That's true. Sometimes my questions are too vague.
And that's completely normal when you're learning another language.
Thanks for saying that.
Of course. Actually, I remember a funny situation from my first office job.
What happened?
My manager asked me to circulate the document, and I had absolutely no idea what that meant.
Really?
I smiled and nodded like I understood everything, then spent 10 minutes secretly searching the phrase online.
I would probably do the same thing.
Eventually, I realized he simply meant emailing the document to the team.
That's funny. Business English can be confusing sometimes because people use expressions that sound formal or indirect.
Exactly. And that's why asking for clarification is so important.
So, in that situation, what could you have said?
I could have said, sorry, could you clarify what you mean by circulate the document?
That sounds simple enough.
It is. And most coworkers are happy to explain things when you ask politely.
I think many learners worry too much about sounding perfect.
I agree. Clear communication is usually more important than perfect grammar.
That's encouraging to hear.
And confidence grows little by little through practice.
You know another difficult situation?
What's that?
Asking for help during meetings.
Ah, yes, that can feel intimidating.
Especially when several people are listening.
Definitely, but there are polite ways to speak up without interrupting aggressively.
Like what?
You could say, sorry, could we go back to the previous point for a moment? Or, could you explain that last part again?
Those sound very useful.
They are. Meetings move quickly sometimes, and asking questions helps prevent misunderstandings later.
True. Sometimes I stay quiet because I'm afraid of slowing everyone down.
But staying confused can create bigger problems afterward.
Fair enough.
And honestly, other people in the meeting may have the same question but feel too nervous to ask.
That's a good point.
So sometimes asking a question actually helps the whole team.
I never looked at it that way before.
Workplace communication is really about teamwork, not perfection.
I like that idea.
Me too.
By the way, do you think tone of voice matters when asking for help?
Absolutely. Tone makes a huge difference in English.
Can you explain what you mean?
Sure. Imagine someone says, I need help with this. That can sound a little abrupt depending on the situation.
Right.
But if they say, could you help me with this when you have a chance? It sounds softer and more polite.
I hear the difference immediately.
Exactly. Small wording changes can make conversations feel friendlier and more professional.
That's really important for workplace English.
Definitely, especially in offices where teamwork and communication matter a lot.
I also notice that native speakers often apologize before asking questions.
That's true. You'll often hear phrases like, sorry to bother you, or sorry, quick question.
Oh yes, I hear quick question all the time.
Exactly. It's a very natural workplace expression.
So if I wanted help from a coworker, I could say, sorry to bother you, but could I ask a quick question?
Perfect. That sounds polite and professional.
Nice. I'm definitely going to use that.
You should.
Can we do a short role play?
Sure, let's do it.
All right, imagine you're my manager, and I don't understand part of an assignment.
Okay, ready?
Hi, Leo. Sorry to interrupt. I was reviewing the instructions for the marketing project, and I just wanted to clarify something. Should I include last quarter's numbers in the presentation?
That was excellent.
Really?
Absolutely. You sounded polite, clear, and confident.
Good. Sometimes I feel nervous before speaking, but once I start, it becomes easier.
That happens to many learners. The hardest part is often beginning the conversation.
Very true. And the more often you practice these situations, the more automatic they become.
I think repetition helps build confidence.
It definitely does. Another challenge for me is understanding fast answers.
Oh, that's very common in workplaces.
Sometimes I ask a question and the person responds so quickly that I miss half the information.
In that situation, don't be afraid to ask them to repeat themselves.
Even at work?
Absolutely. It's much better to ask than to misunderstand important information.
So what could I say politely?
You could say, "Sorry, could you repeat that last part?" Or, "Would you mind saying that again a little more slowly?"
That sounds respectful.
Exactly. Most people respond positively when you ask politely.
That's reassuring again.
There's that word one more time.
I'm trying to remember it.
You're doing a great job.
Thanks. You know what's interesting?
What?
Sometimes I ask a question and the person responds so quickly that I miss half the information.
In that situation, don't be afraid to ask them to repeat themselves.
Even at work?
Absolutely. It's much better to ask than to misunderstand important information.
So what could I say politely?
You could say, "Sorry, could you repeat that last part?" Or, "Would you mind saying that again a little more slowly?"
That sounds respectful.
Exactly. Most people respond positively when you ask politely.
That's reassuring again.
There's that word one more time.
I'm trying to remember it.
You're doing a great job.
Thanks. You know what's interesting?
What?
Before learning workplace English, I thought professional conversations had to sound extremely formal all the time.
A lot of learners think that.
But now I realize many office conversations are actually friendly and relaxed.
Exactly. Professional doesn't mean cold or robotic.
That's good to know because overly formal English sometimes feels unnatural to me.
And in many modern workplaces, friendly communication is actually preferred.
Really?
Definitely. People usually appreciate coworkers who communicate clearly and respectfully without sounding too stiff.
That makes sense.
Of course, it still depends on the workplace culture, but in general, natural communication works well.
I think today's conversation is helping me feel more confident about speaking up at work,
That's wonderful to hear.
especially because these situations happen every day.
Exactly. Asking for help, clarifying instructions, and solving problems together are all normal parts of professional life.
And nobody knows everything.
Absolutely nobody.
That's honestly comforting.
Good, because confidence in English grows when you stop expecting perfection from yourself.
I think many learners need to hear that.
I agree completely.
Before we finish, could we review a few useful phrases one more time?
Of course, let's do a quick review.
Great.
First, could you help me with this when you have a moment?
Polite and professional.
Second, I was hoping you could clarify something for me.
Useful for meetings and instructions.
Third, sorry to bother you, but could I ask a quick question?
Very natural workplace English.
And finally, would you mind repeating that a little more slowly?
Perfect for moments when someone speaks too quickly.
Exactly.
This has been really helpful.
I'm glad.
And hopefully everyone watching feels more comfortable asking for help in English now.
Remember, asking questions is not a weakness. It's part of learning, growing, and communicating well at work.
And every time you practice speaking, even if you make mistakes, you become more confident little by little.
Thank you so much for practicing English with us today.
If you enjoyed this conversation, please like the video and subscribe to English Talk channel for more real-life English practice.
Keep practicing, keep speaking, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
We'll see you in the next lesson.
Take care, everyone.